Pleasant good morning, one and all. Good morning. Good Monday morning, one and all. Welcome to the Monday's episode of Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption, Incompetence. Today is Monday, the 6th day of October in the year of our Lord 2025. Welcome. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I hope you are looking forward to a productive week. Oh Lord, oh God, every time we come, so much to tell you. Even this morning, last evening I sat down and I made a few notes about what to speak about today. Did my research to speak on those subjects. And ups this morning, ups, grand jury indictment. Oh my Lord, there's never a dull moment in this land called Guyana. So we're going to bring it to you. Share the life. Another great day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. Let's give praise and thanks to being in the land of the living. It is a privilege to be in the land of the living, and we should never, ever take that for granted. So share the life. Today, in all the days we encourage you to share, but today, having regards to the breaking news, I think you will want to share the live this morning. Don't be selfish. Let your fellow students, and even those who are not students, let them know that Slow and Conway can tell you some stuff this morning that you will want to hear. Before you listen to anybody else, you want to hear what Slow and Conway have to say about this breaking news. The U.S. grand jury indicts the Mohammeds. We're going to talk about it. We're going to teach. The program the gates were open at 8 o'clock this morning, and many students poured into the schoolyard. And then I am inundated with calls about the same issue, and they wanted explanation. I am no liar, but I'm going to tell you what I know about the system and how the system works. I'm sure you're going to find it very, very interesting, very, very informative, very, very educational. So, folks, sit back, relax, take up your seats, take up your snacks, get your Coke and your popcorn. This morning it's going to be catch it and pepper, as they say. We're going to bring the information to you. We're going to bring it to you. So yes, another great day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and let's be glad in it. Let's give praise and thanks for life. Let's give praise and thanks for life. There's also, the commissioning of the bridge yesterday. I am sure we can get time to talk about it, but there are certain issues that we definitely got to talk about, if not today, on some subsequent program. I did promise you in the notification that we were going to address the response by the traffic chief to the suggestion that they establish on the Linden-Soesdijk Highway safety unit, and it was spelled out what the purpose of this unit should be. Well, the traffic chief, not unexpectedly, had a response, which I'm going to analyze, but not necessarily today, because I don't think time will permit us to go into that today. So yes, share the life. My colleague, CC, Mr. Conway, is already in the studio. He's raring to get involved. And he's going to get the opportunity shortly. You know the usual format. We do the roll call, we make the announcements, and then we're going to get into the meat of the thing. Share. We just about 600. Share the live. I anticipate many students in the classroom this morning. Live students, live. Let me say this. As I've said, we're going to have the announcements and then the roll call. And by now, you know what we do with the roll call. We recognize those students who are in the schoolyard very, very early, and those who come into the classroom early as well. When we schedule at 8 this morning, the first man in, all the way from Canada, Aubrey. Then it was Carl, Kenneth. After Carl, it was Kenneth from Maryland, Peter, Gibbo, Charlene, Umi is here. What if Umi driving today? I know Umi always driving when we have the class. Felicia, Tessa, all the way from Florida. Then you have Wilston, all the way from California. Ezzy, Clarence, Evelyn, Vashti, Joan, Joan from New Amsterdam, all they all came at 8. And then shortly after you have Melinda, Jaco from Georgia, uh, Anthony Bradshaw, Petersall in the East Bank of Demerara. Then we have Emerson, Marlon, who ran from the Essequibo coast. Paulette, Pastor Stewart is here very early. He won 8 to 1. Ezra, Ivor, Rosalind, Patrick from the UK, Clifton from Paris. Then who else? We have Kerry from Maryland, and the list goes on. Mary came, Paulette, Marcia, Diane, Vibert. All these are within the first 2 minutes of the school gate opening. All these are within the first 2 minutes. Sean came at 8:02 as well. Marcus, Siobhan, Aubrey. All these students came. Selwyn, all they came. Right? And when the school doors were open, let me see how they came in. I know normally a certain man is here very, very early. Let me say, and he was did not disappoint. Edward Charles came very early, exactly at 11 when the doors were open. Stian, Steve, Carlton Popo. Then it was Rosie Rose, Joy Prince, Jennifer, and the list goes on and on and on. Neil is here, Joan, on and on, on and on. And again, I compliment and I thank you, students, for being early and being there. Just share the life, share the life. For the announcements, we start with those sad announcements first. We announce deaths and then we go to the more pleasant one, birthdays, another announcement. We told you about the death of, this is sometimes, so I don't have to repeat this now, but we told you about Bailey. Inspector William Stuart Bailey died recently retired. They said, according to the information, Admiral, he was known as Admiral, and he retired recently. He was 61 when he passed away, 61. I tried to get his number. I think it's 13181. Somebody sent it to me. But when writing it down, I left out a digit. So please send it back to me. And then over the weekend, we learned of the death of another former member. We got to watch it, these pensioners, we got to watch it. Former members passing out, and they refer it to Marva Glasgow. Marva, I think they say Marva Grace Glasgow, and then I think she got Scott. Her number was W257. She died on Saturday in Ohio in the United States after, they say, a period of illness. But I remember Marva. Marva used to be up at the commissioner's registry up at the top there. I think she was secretary at one time to Deputy Commissioner Baron Ragabir. But I remember Marva very well. So Marva's transition, I think they say she was in her mid-70s or something like that. So we're going to keep you updated as information comes to hand about the death. And I want to express condolences to the relatives, friends, colleagues, or former colleagues of Barbara. Somebody tell me Bailey was 13381. Admiral was 13381. Thanks, student. 13381 Bailey transition. We're going to give you updated if our funeral arrangements and all of that. Yeah, Marva's passed away too. The former police only last week, only Thursday I think it was, that Donna Dalgetty was, they had a service for in Brooklyn, 290. Now we're hearing of the death of W257 Marva Glasgow, right? And then, it gives me no pleasure to make this announcement. We got to know how dangerous this place is. I refer you now to Alness woman killed in a freak accident. I read the husband's account of what transpired. They're there, either going into some car and saw a truck coming down. And initially it was reported that the truck tire, truck had a blowout. When I read the thing about blowout, I said something wrong. How you can blow out and the whole wheel dislodge? A blowout normally involves the tire, where it is ruptured and the air escapes from the tire, and that's what you call a blowout. But reading now, apparently this truck, the whole wheel from this truck flew off. The entire wheel. Can't remember tire. A wheel is comprised. I know mechanic, but I know the wheel is the rim, the wheel is the tire, and back in the day they used to get the tube. But now many of those things are tubeless, so it's the entire rim, but it's the entire wheel flew off of this truck and killed this woman at Alness on the quarantine. And then the first question we want to ask, what about fitness this vehicle had? It will be interesting to know when last this vehicle was examined and certified for being fit to be traveling on the road. Very interesting question. But again, another death, another senseless death, as they would say. Senseless death. Woman going out of business. Truck, obviously not roadworthy. Obviously not roadworthy. So the old wheel ruptured, fly off, kill the woman, innocent woman going about our business. But that's guy for you. Let me say this. We are, I think rightly, the traffic chief, the traffic department reclassified as an incident, and perhaps correctly so. Perhaps it closed. But are you going to leave it as that? Just an incident? Does it not tell you something is wrong with perhaps the fitness of that vehicle? Would you investigate to see how that vehicle was on the road, whether the vehicle was certified fit to be on the road? And it brings us back to the question you were asking before, the statements that I made repeatedly. That is part of the problem. That is part of the problem. Vehicles on the road, the certification of those vehicles, the qualification of persons who certify those vehicles to be on the road, all of those things you have to look into. And that is why we say when we want to address the traffic carnage on the road, you have to have a comprehensive, holistic approach. That is nonsense what they're doing this piecemeal thing. Yeah, well, by what I agree. Well, by what is asking the question is a fatal accident or fatal incident. Well, if they claim that if a vehicle is traveling along the road and the vehicle encounters some pile of sand or something which results in the death of the person, that is not an accident. It's an incident. I can very well see them classifying this as an incident as well, right? I can see them classifying this as an incident. And then that is not the only one. They're reporting that a biker was killed at the racetrack, the South Dakota circuit. According to what they're saying, a driver with a car was practicing and something with this motorcycle zigzagging in front. So the motorcycle was struck by the car that was practicing, and then he subsequently died. He was taken to the GDF medical there, transferred to Diamond, where he died some stage. That too, they're going to tell you is an incident. They'll say that's not an accident. So I don't know if the racing circuit is a road. I don't know. But again, I say, if things are happening on the road and they're saying it's an incident, must that's on the racetrack at South Dakota circuit. But that is what you have every week. And then one of the most troubling one over the weekend is this incident where a 15-year-old was killed by a stepfather, a 15-year-old over some bicycle chain. And here what the story says, short story. They say this 15-year-old of Stoughville, West Coast, Demerara. It occurred, well, the inquiry is he resided at the place, the thing little jumble that I have. Well, they say on the date and time, the teen and his, he used the stepfather bicycle, which caused the chain to slip. The chain slipped from the bicycle. They had an argument over this chain that slipped from the bicycle. And his stepfather, who they said went into the home, came out with a cutlass. Machete for those Americans and things who don't know his cutlass. Or the country will say cutlass. And chopped this boy in neck and a place and killed him. Imagine that. And then they say he went to the police station and he turned himself in. Police went there, found the motionless body of this boy. Imagine that is what we have come to in this country. A 15-year-old and his stepfather had he took the bicycle. Apparently the bicycle chain slipped. As far as my memory goes, buddy, putting back a chain on a bicycle, the sprocket when it slip off, is an easy thing. the most uncomfortable part is the grease and so on, what on that on your hand. But some argument with this boy and his stepfather. Stepfather chose the best option is to pick up a cutlass and chop this boy up. Chappy, including Chappy the neck. Right? Yeah. Carl, common for bicycle chain to slip. I know you grew up in the country. Bicycles chain, the different type of bicycle. What is a proper bicycle? What is a slingshot? What if all of these people, many of these younger ones know what is a slingshot? You get slingshot bicycle, the chain can slip. Back in the day, you get them fancy bicycle with the ticker and all them type of thing, all sort of reflectors and all sort of fancy bicycles, man. So they might took his stepfather bicycle and the chain slipped. So they had an argument. And it is so easy to fix a chain when it slips off. And this 15-year-old ended up dead because of that. 15-year-old dead because of that. And then the other death we have to announce is the death of former West Indies, Trinidad and Kent cricketer Bernard Julian. Bernard Julian passed over the weekend. And I remember Bernard Julian very well with the kind of afro they left on, medium pacer. And he was there in the days of Trinidad when Trinidad didn't have no fast bowler. You say, but Bernard Julian and Prince Bartholomew, the older cricket fans will know that. Bernard Julian and Prince Bartholomew, they were the two opening batsmen. And after them, you say spin your skin. Spin. Because do you know, back in those days, in the 60s and so on, Trinidad had Martin wicket. They never played on turf. They played on Martin wicket. So they never developed any proper pace bowler in them days until Bishop and Gray and those people came along and so on. Yeah, but Bernard Julian died. According to the records, he played for a long time for Kent in the English county cricket. They say he played 24 tests and 12 one-day internationals. I think that Bernard Julian was a member of the West Indies 1975 winning World Cup team. Because I think the pace bowlers would have been Bernard Julian, Van Bon Ola, and Keith Boyce. I think they were the pacers and so on. The older people can bring it on. And I remember in that 75-76 tour to West Indies, remember that we took to Australia when West Indies get licked up, Lillian Thompson. Bernard Julian actually opened the innings on one occasion because they said the established opener was Gordon Greenidge. And then they had a whole set of people partnering Gordon Greenidge, including Bernard Julian. I think they made a good partnership. He held his own. He was a good all-rounder. So Bernard Julian passed away recently, over the weekend. So I want to again express condolences to the relatives of those people, the lady killed, the biker who died, the lady was struck and killed in this freak accident, they say, at Alness and the quarantine. We have this relative of this young 15-year-old and the relative of Bernard Julian and the entire cricketing community about that. Now, let me tell you quickly the board day announcements, and then I'm going to bring in CC. But today we have the board anniversary, I understand, of a former member, Maurice Cummins. So he was known as Pussy. I don't know why they would call him that. But I had a countryman, Clement Solomon, we used to call him Pussy too. He died some time ago. So we have Maurice Cummins. His number was 7712-7712. He is observing a board anniversary today. And on the last program, we talk about the board day. Somebody commented, only one board day you have the day you're born. Yeah, we know that. And we say that all the time. But traditionally, you call the board anniversary board day. Yeah, we know it's not a board day, it's a board date, the date of your birth, right? But we just say board day, so our board anniversary, and then everything. So we know what we're talking about. And then we also have the board day of the former Guyana and West Indies fast bowler, my friend Rion King. Rion is celebrating a birthday today. He's the son of a student, 9135 King, who is always on the program out of California. So Rion is celebrating. He's also a match referee. He's, I think, the leading West Indian, apart from the international one and the ICC, Richard Richardson. Rion King is the senior match referee in the West Indies. And I also have to announce the birthday of a countryman of mine, Oswald Sampson. We grew up a few houses away apart from each other. We used to call it Grip. So Grip is observing the birth anniversary today. Also observing, I think, a student, Desiree. Desiree should be observing. I got a note a few weeks ago, and I misplaced it, but I think I remember that Desiree Liverpool is observing our birth anniversary today as well. And then belated anniversary to Woman Assistant Superintendent Marcia Seeley. She used to be at immigration. I don't know if she's still there. Um, Member of Parliament Coretta McDonald celebrated or observed her birth anniversary yesterday. Then we have retired Sergeant 9900 McDonald. He too had one recently. Also recently is retired Woman Inspector Roseanne Ford. And then we had former members, Guard Summersall, 77, 72 Summersall from the TSU Guard. I didn't even know what his first name, he correct first name, Guard. Anybody in the days of the TSU know Guard. When they call him Guard, Guard was a character, a comic book character, big strapping man. That is why they call him Guard. 6-footer, over 6 feet, massive shoulders and so on. So Guard had a body recently, and also had a body recently is Guard family. Marvin Summersall, former fast bowler, who is on this program religiously now. He too had a birth anniversary recently. And in terms of upcoming, let me see if they have any coming up. I don't think we have any coming up shortly. Yes, we do. No, we don't have any coming up shortly. So yeah. So birthday greetings, birth anniversary greeting to all those um, who are celebrating today, who celebrated recently, and who celebrated in the near future. And oh yeah, Albert was his first name, Albert Summersall. Yeah, I remember now, Albert Summersall, right? And Rebecca Liverpool, 17688. She is also observing her birth anniversary. Let me be correct before I am rebuked by the student. Yeah, he was a driver, big strapping man, driver in the days of them German truck, in the days of the German truck. And for the old TSU men, you had 3 Ds who were in the TSU. Daniels, right? 7122 Daniels. David, 7353 David. And Summersall, 7772 Summersall. I ain't gonna tell you how Summersall became another D, but there were 3 Ds. David Daniels, and we used to call Summersall S as the third D. That's for another time. So all the best for y'all, the people who are at the birthday and so on. I see somebody saying other people celebrate the birthday. We don't recognize Jacobats. We don't normally recognize Jacobats. It's not a birthday request show as such. So I don't recognize Jacobats. Before I go on, let me bring in Mr. Conway, and then we're gonna move on. CC, welcome. Hope you had a wonderful weekend.
Yes, nice, good weekend, and birthday greetings in place. And then we had the whole other debts there. And that's the thing when the PPP is in government. You have debts, you get fire, you get drugs, and corruption. I repeat, debts, fire, drugs, corruption. You gotta expect those things when they are in thing, whether it's suicide, whether it's murder, whether it is deaths on the roads, they're there, and the drugs, everything there. I want to shout out to one of our students. I went to pick up my grandson. He into swimming. And after swimming, he said, "Hey, grandfather, I have to get some snacks." And he requested some church snacks. So we went in the building there, and there was a little girl. She's about 10 or 11 with her father. And she turned to me and she turned and she tapped it out. "Daddy, this is the man you just watch on television. This is the same man you just watch on television." So I'm surprised. And then the guy said, yes, he said he's a student. He don't miss our program and he's watch the program and he's learn from the program. I don't want to call his name, but just want to say hi to him, and I hope that he will continue watching our program. And I want to say shout out to John Sayers, retired superintendent, who also in charge of the communication department there, the PRO. John, thanks for the suggestions that you made in terms of having a program in a better state, improving the standard of a program. Thank you very much.
Yeah, all right. I see Mr. Carter get a little bobbling with the signal, so let's hope that it clears up. Now, let me say this. People are reminding us too about the TSU ASIB 7383, I think was ASIB's number, or 70, something 7483 or 7383 was ASIB, another driver there in the TSU in those days. And I'm reminded here of a birthday of 13372 Floyd Bascom. He had a birth anniversary recently too. Now let me say this. Let me say this. I want to compliment the solid waste department of the Mayan City Council. On this program is not only we look for the bad things, we look for the good things as well. And what I'm complimenting them on, I noted over the past couple days, perhaps a week or so, they have been having stakeouts in certain areas, especially in that Alexander Street border area, to see people who are indiscriminately dumping garbage. And those persons are arrested and charged. Arrested and charged. I would hope that once they're arrested and charged, the court, rather than finding them $10,000 and $15,000, give them community service for clean a whole street for a couple of days or 2 days. Give them community service to let them know that that is unacceptable for them to dump. And in one of the cases, the person who gave them the stuff to dump to was arrested. Compliments and congratulations to the solid waste department of the Mayan City Council. This thing is disgusting. Businesses give these people, some of them they call them junkie and all them type of thing, and they just dump the thing all over the place, right? So this revival of the city that they're talking about and so on, the government talking about, is not only revival, be cleaning up and so on. You have to have measures to prevent this type of behavior. You have to put measures in place. Not so long ago, just to show you how this blow hot and blow cold. About 2 to 3 months ago, the police came out with a big statement. The Deputy Commissioner of Operations sent out message. They must have this campaign, anti-littering campaign, and messages are to be sent every day indicating how many persons were arrested, blah, 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 blah. What has happened to that? Well, nothing. Nothing has happened. And that is why you have to be critical of these things. When you hear them jump out and make all sort of statement, it's just statement. They're playing politics. Just statement. They're dumping things all over the place. And when you look at the dump, you don't know ordinary body just pass and choose something. Not no ordinary body. Let me tell you all this. And Mr. Jordan made a statement, Winston Jordan, last Thursday about teaching civics in school. And I fully agree. Because he was talking, and we're going to talk about it perhaps a little later, about teaching children about the issues, the border issues with Suriname and Venezuela, so people can know. You go to Suriname, you go to Venezuela, all of them are taught, especially Venezuelans, have been indoctrinated from small to believe that Essequibo belongs to them. Go about and ask any average adult in Guyana about the issue. Not when I say adult, not even only average, some who are supposed to be educated. What is the issue with the border with Venezuela and Guyana? They can't tell you, they can't give no coherent response as to what is the issue. These things have to be taught. And only just one after when the thing come, they issue some release and they don't know. It has to be taught in schools. And I say that to say too, that when we talk about littering should be taught to the children every now and again. You get some campaign and things that can't work. It has to be something that is sustained. Let me tell you about an experience I had with littering. Many years ago, it would have been in 1989, 1990. I was with the United Nations in Namibia as part of the United Nations Transition Assistance Group. I was in we had a United Nations cricket team, and I was in this cricket team. And we were going to play, we were leaving the capital, Windhoek, to go to Swakop Mound. That is a coastal area, beach area. The match was being played there. Coastal area with beaches and so on. And we had some neighbors, female and male, wanted to come with us because they were not, they had never been there. We had vehicles and so on, so we decided to take them. One of the female neighbors, a schoolgirl, with her elder sister and thing, they were in my vehicle. And when we drive in Land Cruiser, we driving going through the desert. There was a kind of an oasis or where you stop. I bought some stuff there and continue driving. And poor me with my bad habits from Guyana, I unwrapped something and I threw it through the window. I threw it in the window. And students, I get from this girl who was there, not the elder sister on the girl, one of the most embarrassing tongue lashes you could imagine. You call me Paul. Oh, Mr. Paul, how can you do that? Blah, 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 blah. This guy, as we say in police, bucked me up for throwing this wrapper through the window. You know, let me tell you that. That has remained with me ever since. I have never, ever, even now, I don't litter at all. In the car, there's a bag to put garbage. You unwrap a chewing gum or something, I put the wrapper in my pocket. It is part of me now. From that what a child told me. She bucked me up. She bucked me up. Right? So I can tell you all, this thing has to be taught in school. Either sometime in the village whenever I'm in Guyana, sometimes you sit down, you're watching these children pass, you buy some sweetie. They throw the thing, you're telling no, pick it up, put it. Bins are right nearby. Sometimes a bin is right nearby. A bin is right nearby, but they throw it on the road. So yes, civics has to be taught. So again, I say congratulations to the Mayor and City Council, the Solid Waste Department to deal with that. Let me bring Mr. Conway, and then we're going to move on. Cece, your views on that campaign.
I agree, you know. I agree with that campaign that you need to teach civics and so. Even down to me, I like you know. If I suck a sweetie or something, I put the paper in my pocket, put it in my pocket. I don't throw things through car window and them kind of thing. No, it's annoying, you know, and it's unhealthy. And yes, we need to get back to that, instill it in our children, and also instill it in our big people, the adults, you know. It needs to be done, Paul.
Yeah, I agree. It has to be done, man. We got to do that. We got to do that. And before I go on, let me remind you that today, let me remind them. I should have said so earlier when we talk about that announcement. And so on. That today is 553 days since Sergeant Alex Vaughan, was shot and killed. Police Sergeant Alex Vaughan shot and killed 553 days ago. And we aren't hearing anything. We are not hearing anything. Apart from the initial nice about the rank being under close arrest and so on, we're not hearing anything more. Now, let me say this. And CC, permit me to take a little baton here, right? Yesterday was October the 5th. And there's a day I would always remember. I think the plate of this year, October the 5th was the day PPP came to power, 1992. October the 5th, 1992. And let me tell you all a little about my role on that day, right? Because I'm not going to allow the sycophants and the propagandists to rewrite history, right? So let me remind you, and I know that at least one person on this live was a part of the TSU with me at the time. At that time, I was the officer in charge of the TSU, the Tactical Services Unit, or as they call it, the Riot Squad. Young superintendent. I would have been, 92, I would have been in the 30s. Now, I was in charge, promoted superintendent the same year on 23rd of February, 1992. I was promoted to the rank of superintendent. I was already in charge of TSU as a deputy superintendent. I was a deputy superintendent when I was made to take over from Ovid Glasgow and in charge of the TSU. If you remember well, we had elections in 1985. So elections would have been due in 1990, but they had a lot of issues, which is I'm not going to go in. So elections weren't held 5 years after 85 in 90. It was held, the elections were held in 1992. Remember with the Carter coming in, and then they decide come to the place of poll, and all types of changes were made. So I, as the officer in charge of TSU, had the task of preparing the riot units, because we had several units, to engage any unlawful activity. That was my mandate as the officer in charge of the TSU, right? So we prepared the units, because in them days you're going to deploy unit to quarantine, you get units in Georgetown and all of that, right? We were well prepared, professionally prepared. Now, on the day itself, election day, Monday, the 5th of October, 1992, very early there were signals that you're going to get trouble. I remember it was on some school on Sheriff Street where a crowd had gathered and people were complaining that they were disenfranchised. That is to say, they turned up and they were told that their names were not on the register to vote. And they went all over and they couldn't find their names, right? A particular journalist, he's deceased now, I'm not calling him, he had a live broadcast and it was a general feeling that his commentary, right, was inciting people to act unlawfully. So we were alert. The units were there and we were alert. At some stage at that time, the GCOM office was in Crowell Street, right by where Action Tire, somewhere up there. You get a book plate, that stationary place. Somewhere up there was was GCOM office, and the GCOM CEO, then the CEO, the chairman was Mr. Collins, former diplomat and so on. He was the man. So at some stage, a crowd gathered in front of GCOM in Crowell Street, large crowd. And they were making demands to vote because they were saying they were not being allowed to vote. I remember the Commissioner Larry Lewis sent me there, and I went up into the building with Mr. Collins, and I remember Joy Cole, right? I can't remember what was her rank. She was there, right? The Ola police, remember Joy Cole, I think W106, she was there. And I can remember Collins trembling because the crowd would say they're behaving bad, and Collins trembling. And somebody said that, all right, let them tell them, the word was passed, that they were going to be allowed to vote right there at the GCOM office in Crowell Street. They were told that, even though that was a bluff, I think, just to get them satisfied and move on. So they were told that. Now, when they were told that they're going to be allowed to vote, the crowd moved away. A large portion of the crowd moved away from the place in Crowell Street, and they went towards Regent Street. Yeah, follow me, follow me carefully. I remember it very well. Now, I moved from the building there because the people started to try breaking store to loot and all that. I went to Brickdam. They had the units there. One unit was commanded by Ovid Glasgow. Another unit was commanded by Henry Green. And the Commissioner of Police, Larry Lewis, for some reason, decided that Slow, who was the officer in charge of the TSU, would not be in command of any unit, right? At that time, too, the other next unit they brought down from the quarantine, a unit comprised of trainees who were at the Adventure College. And that unit was headed by Sitaram, 6813, can't remember what's the rank. He came with them, right? He came with them. So you had trouble in the Regent Street. People breaking store windows and all this type of thing. I passed there. I think I had some of the recruits with me and from Borbies. I passed and I went into Brickdam. Sultan Qasim was Commander A Division. He came down and he met me by traffic downstairs. There's a unit, Ovid Glasgow unit was there. And they couldn't find Ovid. Larry Lewis used to tease you about that for years, right? For years, that he abandoned the unit. And I then told Qasim, the commander, in a very forceful, as forceful as I could have been without being disrespectful, that based on my estimation and what was going on in the streets, the riot unit needs to go out there and to take the appropriate action. Because I then said to him that if night fell and this place wasn't brought under order, Georgetown and Bondong, that was my words to him. He went into traffic downstairs, went into the traffic office, and he called the commissioner. I couldn't hear what the commissioner was saying. He was a landline about I could hear Kasim. And he repeated to the commissioner what I told him. And I could hear, yes, sir, no, sir, no, sir. When he finished, when the exchange was finished between the commissioner and Kasim turned to me and said that the commissioner said that the riot unit should go and disperse the crowd and so on. I didn't take no setup. Listen to me carefully. I didn't take no setup. I asked I think he was assistant commissioner, I can't remember what's rank then, to repeat in the presence of everybody what were the instructions in the other offices and so on. And he repeated. And you know what I did then? Lessons to be learned. I used to teach these things, you know. I assembled the people who there was like Glasgow unit, they couldn't find Glasgow. And I said, look, we are going on the road. People are behaving disorderly. They might even be looting and so on going on. We are going to act professionally. We're going to bring order to this situation. No one is to shoot. No one is to throw any tear smoke. No one is to take any action unless I specifically direct them to do so. I remember some of the ranks, I know the name or call the name here. I said, no one will shoot. No one will throw tear smoke. No one will do anything unless I tell you specifically to do so. So we went into Regent Street and people were there. We had to engage the crowd. I tell them a call on the people with greener gun. And in case you all know what is a greener gun, is a type of shotgun designed for riot control. And I told them to fire, call on a man, fire, right? Initially, the instruction was for them to fire in the air. They didn't want nobody get injured. The crowd ran, some people ran. And then they started, we started getting feedback. They said they find blanks, don't go nowhere, they find blanks. At which stage, the people decide they ain't going no place. Right? And at that time, we adopted a certain tactic with the greener guns to disperse, not to injure, not to kill people or to seriously injure. There's a technique that we employed because then I knew what they call the cone of fire and all of that. I used to lecture these things, so I knew. Because a shotgun can be lethal if it is fired at certain range. So I ensured that we had a proper cone and so on, and we fired, and no one was seriously injured. The crowd dispersed. Well, let me tell you all this too, police, Watson, all them. It was as a result of that experience that I modified the arms in the riot unit. Because those greener guns had some old cartridges, and many of them misfired while we were there. They misfired. I remember I had to, because of my knowledge, we had two types of greener gun, the Greener Mark III, the Greener Mark III 12. The Greener Mark III fired a special brass cartridge. The Greener Mark III fired also another type of brass cartridge, but also fired any 12 gauge cartridge, right? So we had to abandon the brass cartridge to the greener guns and got 12 gauge. But even when we got the 12 gauge, I remember good luck and everybody downstairs, I ensured that we got the correct type of 12 gauge cartridges, board pellets. Not like what they use in Linden and elsewhere and kill people. Board pellets, right? And all right, we were able to bring order into the city. One of the compliments that I got, and I'm going to repeat it, not for them just shallow memory, and I'm saying this not to big up myself, but to make sure that them sycophants and them propagandists and rewrite history, because they attempt to do that every day, right? So what happened? The night fell. By this time, good time, place clear up and so on. I remember us having to go in front of clearance, because we got word that people going to break into clearance on Church Street. And we arrived there before the crowd, while the crowd was coming down Church Street. They're traveling west along Church Street. We came from Avenue Republic and took up our position by Amsterdam, stopped them from, I think. And we did that all around. We did that all around, right? We were able to do that. And night fell. And they had helicopter overhead and that sort of thing. And we were going east along Regent Street, approaching Camp Street. And the chief of staff, Joe Singh, as I said, none of them don't remember. Me remember good. As I approached there, he called out. He wanted to know who was the police commander. And I went and I identified. He knew me from Rifle Association. He said, Paul, you're the commander? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, look, there's no need for me to be here. I'm comfortable. You're competent. I am going back inside. One of the greatest compliments paid to me as an officer. The chief of staff told me that. And he went back in. And order was restored in, as they say, labor time. Order. Following that, y'all, bear with me. Following that, I was hailed a hero by the PPP and the business community in Georgetown because they saw the professional action that the police that I led took. They saw the professional action. And I was hailed a hero, newspaper article, letter in the press and all that everything. They went so far, right, that the commissioner told me that the people had offered me a weekend with my family at Shacklands on the Essequibo coast. They were so satisfied. You know, later that same month, October month, I went to Jamaica with the national team to shoot, right? And we had a fellow who worked at CARICOM, Jamaican worked at CARICOM, Byron Noble. He shot with us too. And the man, I was embarrassed. The man was introducing me to all them senior military people as a man who brought order to Georgetown within, and they said, how did you do it? How did you do it? And that sort of thing, right? That was it. The same PPP who trying to pay and slow as this unprofessional body and this man who fraud and all them type of things, same people. And the people know it. And let me say this before I move on. When I met with the president on the 16th of September 2020, he referenced that. How they had a lot of respect for me. They referenced that. Because I wasn't politics. I was never, even now, I'm not about politics. I was being professional. And let me say this. In 1992, I voted for the PNC. That was my right to vote for the PNC. And the people who were out there behaving bad were generally felt it was perceived to be PNC people. That wouldn't stop me from taking the action that I had to take. And let me tell you again, ask them, the older heads were around, all them people in town, I was a worst body because I am Janet Jackson's stooge. Janet gave me the order. Never. No one ever gave me any order, or no one can dare to give me any order to do anything that is unlawful or illegal. And that is why me and Jackie fall out. Because with the Gadrat story, when they wanted me to unback the firearm to the laminate man from Rosignal, and I told him that the matter had not reached the stage for the firearm to be handed back. The investigation had not reached that stage. That was in 2003. Jack Dio called me to his office, summoned me to his office through the commissioner. I went there and he wanted me to apologize to Gadra. I said, apologize to what? Oh, you didn't do nothing wrong, and you didn't do nothing wrong. But I said, but if I didn't do nothing wrong, why should I apologize? I was very respectful. And that was the beginning. They decided to come after me because I stood up. So that was October 5th. What if Mark Phillips and all them though? No. What if Omar Khan them been in the army then and they remember? I will sing my praise and I will talk the story. And whenever I say, go into the archives, research it and think. I am just blowing out here, right? And they did that, came after me viciously, still coming after me. And as a result of that, a result of my actions and the unit here, and again the following year, the following election cycle, right? I received a national award, DSM, from no less a person than the then president, Janet Jagan. I was a senior superintendent. And in case, for the people who know, normally that is, there are a few people below the rank of assistant commissioner who would have gotten that. But that was rare. because those the discipline service medal was reserved for people at the rank of assistant commissioner above. But I was a senior superintendent, and I was given the national award. I got a picture there where President Jagan pinning on the medal and swan on me. You got to talk these things. October the 5th, I will always remember it. Always. So when they come and they try to paint a certain picture, and let me say this to the older ones who are there, Clement Roy, Darrell Ramatar, Gail Teixeira, Ari Prasad Nocta, and that older PPP crew, they know. These younger ones probably don't read, and so therefore they know. But I said the president did reference that, so he knew too of it, right? Or he knows of it, right? He knows of it. So I'm not going to allow them to rewrite history and paint me as some blasted villain. No. They ain't going to work. That is not going to work, right? Let me bring in CC, and then I'm going to move on. CC.
Thanks for bringing up October 5, And I played a part in that election. I was stationed at the police training school. And about 9 days before election, Larry Lewis sent for me, Commissioner Lewis. I went to him. Harry, Conway, I send you in the opposition stronghold. I send you at whim to be in charge of arrangements for the election there. And you be based at whim because Sitaram, the officer there, they had a meeting, a political meeting at Rosal. Cherry Jagan spoke, and after the meeting, Sitaram was seen hugging up Jagan. He said, you go in there and you will take over from Sitaram. I said, when? He said, from tomorrow morning, find yourself in Borbis. Thank you. God bless you. I left the next morning. I met Sitaram at Rosignol. He crossed with the boat I crossed going to New Amsterdam, quarantine. And he said, everything already. And when I went to him, things were okay on paper, but in reality, they weren't okay because he said he was going leaving, and he tell them, in those days, police didn't get vehicles, they didn't get a whole set of resources to run the thing. They had it on paper, and I had to get down. I always remember my squaddy, Sandy, Wilfred Sandy was a traffic man there, and he said, squaddy, don't bother, I gonna get things there. So we were able to get vehicles, and also they had a lot of people, RCs there, on paper to work at polling station, and when you check, some of them dead. Some of them said they're not available. Some were too sick and all. I had to get down and do things. And I ran the police duties during that election period on the quarantine in the opposition then stronghold. And lo and behold, the election, the PPP won the election. And within a week, Sitaram turned up on me and said, hey, they send me to Joshua, no come back, me in charge. You prepare your handover and you go along your way. So I had to hand over to Sitaram and then I went back to Joshua. So I knew October 92 very well. But quietly, I think I did a reasonable job in the PPP stronghold and a reasonable and professional job.
Yeah, so again, we're not going to allow them to rewrite. Coming out of that too, somebody said Sarmine. Sarmine wasn't in the political arena at that time because he came from Linden as the prime ministerial candidate with his civic component. And when it was after Jagan was sworn in at State House, I was there. I was very prominent in all of those things. And Mr. Kasim, we have Mr. Kasim to determine who was the ADC to the president. We made that decision. Then after then, when they decided Prime Sarmines, swearing of Sarmines, some days after swearing in, they said he was going to be sworn in at the Cherry Jagan's home in New Haven, Bel Air. Lilo said, slow, go down there and make sure everything all right. When I went down there, the place was in a mess. The place was in a mess. Foul in the yard, all sort of thing going on there. Nothing. And I got the amount from TSU. He was there now and again. I know his son is on. I ain't gonna call him name. I took him there and we straightened out that place, flagpole, dam, do everything, right? That's some men cooking in the yard with big karahi, and we put some systems in place within a few hours. So by the time the swearing was ready, Sarmines got swearing in Jagan Yard in New Haven. They said maybe that is why he acted the way he acted for all those years, even when he became president on the death of Jagan. Y'all, let me tell you something. And people have been saying to me repeatedly that I must write. I will at some stage. This thing got to be documented, because if you don't, they come with the sycophants, and them come and they rewrite history. Yes, Francis became the ADC, and he was not the only person that was sent from the GDF then. He was not. I can't tell you the conversation Cousin and I had, which resulted in the person being selected for ADC. Right? I can't tell you that. I'm not going to tell you that now. And yeah, man said that he hated me. A man has commented that he hated me because of the narrative that was pushed. Yeah, they push a narrative. Slow is Janet Stooge and Jaganda and all sort of thing. That's the narrative they push. I was told by Larry Lewis and them that I was the only senior officer, apart from Lewis, I guess, that they really trusted. So much so that in 1994, when they decided that they wanted to move the guard from under the police, the presidential guard, take it away from the police, I was sent there to be the head of the presidential guard, taken over from Darky, with Rowan Singh and all them, that's some of my officers. I was sent there because Larry Lewis did not want the guard to move from the police to some other entity. And the same year, I went to Staff College in the UK. And while I was in Staff College, I got word that they were interviewing civilians to take over the guard. And when I returned in December of 1994, right, I did not go back to the guard because by then they brought in Slingshot Dre Paul to take over the presidential guard. Slingshot, the Calypsonian, the Calypsonian Slingshot Dre Paul came. So when I left, as a matter of fact, there's a long story to I gotta talk another time. Because when I left there, they were all dancing as to who I should hand over to. Right? They had Albert. You remember the driver? Albert, the driver was there. He was a deputy superintendent. I was a superintendent. And then after that, you had Ron Singh, an assistant superintendent in the special constabulary. And I asking them, who should I hand over to? I said, all right, here, I call a meeting. I said, police regulation. Right? I am a superintendent. The next senior man is a deputy superintendent. I am handing over to the deputy superintendent. If when I gone, y'all want to get anybody else, y'all could do that. Rohan Singh then said that he was there as the head of the presidential guard designate. I said, me know the rank. I don't know the rank. I know that after superintendent is deputy superintendent, I can hand over to Albert. And I remember cuss Albert because I said, I don't mind if Mr. Singh take over. I said, that is not the point. That is not the point. Right? So let me tell you all a thing, I got to talk these things. I've got to talk these things. You know what gives me great pleasure? You must check out the comments. When I mention these things, a lot of people will come in and they will say, yeah, they were there. Yeah, they knew of it. I'm making up story in line. Even when I spoke about the chief of staff coming and complimenting me, a man in the comment, they say, yeah, he been there. Man say he been there. You don't make up these things. I ain't got to big up myself, right? But the PPP, ungrateful, ingratitude, Nima Karam, as we will come to explore as we move on. Now let me move on. I thought it important, students. Y'all share the life. I thought it important to put this thing in context and let y'all know what transpired. Because I was a golden boy. When PPP came to office in 1992, I was a golden boy, golden police officer, professional police officer who will do the professional thing. And when I did the professional thing in 2003 and tell them that the gun cannot be handed back, right? Jack, they'll feel that I was disrespectful or whatever they felt. I remained an assistant commissioner for 11 years. 11 years, right? So let me understand this, what's going on. So when I read this morning, and I'll read it to you in a while, about the sanctions of the Mohammeds, I reflected and I remembered, right, that the Mohammeds saying that in 2020, they basically financed the PPP. They played a great role in the PPP returning to office in 2020. That's what the Mohammeds claim. And we know, we get evidence because we know that when the president in 2020 went for his inauguration, is one of the Mohammed's bulletproof vehicle used. Put on the crest, they put on the presidential crown on the Mohammed vehicle, even though later on the president claimed that he never used the vehicle once he became president. Lie. That is not so. The evidence, I produced the evidence. Because when he was already president, he was sworn in at the Chung Convention Center on the 2nd of August 2020, right? And then he was inaugurated sometime after, a Saturday, can't remember the exact date, at the Cultural Center. And when he arrived at the inauguration, he had the vehicle with the presidential crest on it. So he was already president when he was using it, right? I just get facts. As a farmer, as a retired senior police officer, we don't start evidence-based. All right. So the Mohammeds said that they were responsible to a great extent for the PPP coming to power in 2020. And we know a lot of stuff happened. People said that the body. So nothing wrong then. But then they fall out. But let me fast forward, then I'll go back. Right? This morning, and I'm going to read, they got several articles jump out. But I'm going to read this one from credible source. It says, U.S. indicts presumptive opposition leader Assaduddin Mohammed and father on fraud and smuggling charges. Indictment of opposition leader designate Assaduddin Mohammed sparks political shock in Guyana. That goes on. Georgetown, Guyana, credible source. That is my source, credible source. I'm reading from them. Sanctioned businessman and presumptive opposition leader Assaduddin Mohammed, along with his father Nazar Mohammed, has been indicted in Florida court in a Florida court on 11 combined charges of wire fraud, gold smuggling, and money laundering, according to Newsroom. The indictment filed in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida accuses the Mohammeds of operating a vast cross-border financial scheme through their company, Mohammed's Enterprise. Each charge carries a potential maximum sentence of 20 years imprisonment, marking a dramatic escalation in the U.S. government's pursuit of the pair. Both men were previously sanctioned in 2024 by the U.S. Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Asset Control, OFAC, under the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, which targets corruption and human rights abuses worldwide. At the time, OFAC also sanctioned May Thomas, a senior PPP government official and member of the party's Central Executive Committee, for her alleged role in facilitating favors to the Mohammeds while serving as permanent secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs. The Treasury Department said that Thomas provided, quote, benefits, cash, and inside information, end of quote, to assist the company in securing contracts, permits, and favorable treatment. According to U.S. investigators, Mohammed's enterprise defrauded the government of Guyana of more than US 50 million by under-declaring over 10,000 kilograms of gold exports between 2019 and 2023. The company allegedly bribed customs officials to falsify export documents, laundering money through its Cambio operations, and used the front entities, including Team Mohammed's racing team and Hadi's World, to conceal illicit transactions. OFAC said that the Mohammed's operation had long, quote, exploited Guyana's underdevelopment gold sector for their personal gain, unquote. undermining governance and depriving the state of critical revenues. The indictment has reignited fierce political debate in Guyana, given Azuddin Mohammed's status as a presumptive opposition leader and his previous claim of political victimization following the 2024 sanctions. Critics say the case exposes deep-rooted corruption and blurred lines between business, politics, and governance. Transparency advocates have called on both the government and the opposition to address the implications of the charges addressed openly. While U.S. authorities say the case underscores their commitment to holding, quote, corrupt actors, end of quote, accountable for exploiting Guyana's natural resource wealth. A mouthful there. A mouthful there, right? But somebody say other places get a more detail, but I'm reading that because I want to walk through some of these things with you, I want to walk through some of these things with you. I'm going into the teaching mode in a while. Let me pull up my notes. Let me pull up the notes. I'm laughing because I'm celebrating anything. I'm laughing because, as we have said, they got more to it you got to analyze. Hold on. Y'all bear with me a little bit. Bear with me. All right, I'll get to it. Y'all bear with me. To continue. We had elections on the 1st of September, over a month ago, this year. And after that, the PPP declared the winners of the election, almost 36 seats, something like that. Then the Win Party, which is headed by the same Azuddin Mohammed, who was sanctioned and now indicted, right, got the largest part of the opposition, 16. The coalition, APNU, AFC, got 12, and Forward Ghana Movement got 1. The parties subsequently named, in the case of the government, they named their cabinet ministers, large cabinet, 26 or something, large cabinet minister. I say, like Southwood cabinet, infested with termites. That was my characterization. They name it. Then they named the members of parliament. And I'm going to analyze that at some other time. They named the members of parliament. Then we had the coalition named their 12, right? And then they said, well, the person who was the coalition presidential candidate, R.B. Norton, will not be going back to parliament. And they said that 12, the coalition 12, will be led by businessman Dr. Terence Campbell, right? And then long after, very soon, very shortly, then we heard about the people for the Win Party who will be going to parliament, including some of those who were members of parliament under the coalition, at least 3 of them. They're there with the Win Party. They named them as going into parliament. And then we learned that they're saying that Azuddin Mohammed will be the leader of the opposition when the time comes. Right? Can we explain the process as was told to us, as the Constitution dictates? President has to issue a proclamation to convene the 13th Parliament. It was strange, very strange, that up to now, that proclamation has not been declared. Following the proclamation, Parliament will convene. The members of Parliament will be sworn in, right? And then we learned that there will be another meeting chaired by the speaker, whoever the speaker is, right? Another meeting of the opposition members, right? Initially, when it convenes, all the members are going to be there, government members and opposition members, sworn in as members of parliament. There's no opposition leader. The speaker will then convene a meeting of members of the opposition. And at that meeting, they will vote and elect the leader of the opposition. Well, it is always felt that if Win gets 16 and the others get a combined 13, then if Win says Azuddin Mohammed is going to be the leader, that is it, because they're going to vote for him. right? It's 16 against 13, right? But it was strange. It was strange that that proclamation to convene the Tournament Parliament has not been declared. So this morning, when I learned of the indictment against the Mohammeds, I asked the question, I asked myself, and I'm still searching for an answer, whether this was not deliberate. I asked myself, the delay in proclaiming, issuing the proclamation to convene the 13th Parliament. Wait, is this just a mere coincidence? Or could we say they knew something they coming down? Because the president, remember something last week or something like that? I think Mr. Jordan had said, and he corrected himself. That is what I like about certain people. Mr. Jordan had given information which turned out to be wrong. And he came on the program last week, Thursday, I think it was, and he corrected himself because he had said that the parliament should have been convened within 3 months of the dissolution, and that would have been 3 months would have started from July the 2nd, he said. But he read another article in the Constitution and then said, it is not 3 months, it is 4 months. And then the 4 months puts it at November and not at October, as he had said. Now, when the president was asked sometime last week, I think it was, about that, he said he does always follow the Constitution, which is not so. And I will deal with that at some subsequent program. The judge, in my case, says no, that is not so. And then he said that he is going to follow the Constitution. And the Constitution, well, I don't think he explained in detail. He's going to comply. But the research shows that they have up to November. I am convinced, listen to me, I am convinced, given regards to this sanction now, not the sanction, the indictment, that somehow, they knew or they suspected that this indictment coming down. And therefore, they want to declare parliament, get the man as opposition leader, and then opposition leader indicted. Look, we are in some interesting time. We are in uncharted waters. And the uncharted waters, and it looked like the GPS and walking. Because you know it's GPS, it does send you where you gotta go. You're in uncharted waters, and the global positioning system, GPS, now work. So nobody will know where to go. Now work. So, folks, I give you that as an introduction. Because I get enough more to talk about in relation to the same thing. Share the word, share the life, share. Because when people have grand jury indictment, what is that? I'll explain to you in detail what is that in a short while. But let me bring Mr. Conway in, and then I will come back to explain to you what this all means. We are in serious, serious times. Stay tuned. Don't be selfish. Share the life. Right? CC, indictment against the Mohammeds. Your take.
Well, we shouldn't be surprised, that the president didn't call a date for Parliament to reach. Apparently, he had a feedback somewhere, or he suspected that indictment will have come on. And Adnan is saying that he's follow the Constitution. He breached it in our case. He breaches in our case. Null where the judge is null and void, no legal effect. When he suspended us from the Police Service Commission. And then let me end it this way. PPPC again. Poor planning promotes chaos, confusion, corruption. Let me go again. Poor planning promotes chaos, confusion, corruption. And that's what we face with right now.
Yeah. But let me tell you all. The first thing, I don't think Guyanese are familiar. The average Guyanese man isn't familiar with what a grand jury is. So there's a system in the States where they get grand jury. Now, what is a grand jury? Come on, y'all don't be selfish. Each of you should share to at least 2 or 3 persons. Each of you should share to at least 2 or 3 persons. Let me explain y'all what I know of the grand jury, how it works, right? Now, A grand jury, they say, is a group of citizens that determines if there is enough evidence to formally charge a person with a serious crime known as a felony, and issue an indictment or a formal accusation to bring them to trial. So what a grand jury is really is they bring it together. They bring it, and they say is about 16 to 21, anything between 16 to 21 persons. They come, and the government, the prosecutors present the evidence. It's not a trial. A grand jury sitting is not a trial. Let me read it back. It's a group of citizens that determines if there's enough evidence to formally charge a person with a serious crime. And a serious crime is known as a felony. And they issue an indictment or a formal accusation to bring the person to trial. So we have the grand jury sitting, and the prosecutors would have presented evidence, even witnesses. I say, hey, this is what we have. It is not a trial, so the person who is accused don't get the opportunity to come and to defend himself and rebut. No, you don't work that way. They present, and based on the presentation, the grand jury decides whether they're going to issue an indictment, which they have done in this case, right? And then the next stage is trial, right? Now, let's understand this. The grand jury met, the grand jury indict, as we have seen. I get a copy and I read it sometime. And so the next stage now is trial in terms of the grand jury. But we get stages to go even before the trial. Because as we all know, Azuddin Mohammed is in Guyana. The indictment is in the US, Florida, United States, in Florida. So I would expect that the next stage of that process is for them to make a request for Azuddin Mohammed to be extradited to the United States of America. Follow me, students, follow me, and it's a share. Grand jury issued an indictment. Sometimes they issue an indictment, and sometimes it is under seal. So the evidence is presented to the grand jury, and incidentally, let me tell you all now that a grand jury inquiry, or what we want to call it, is by law confidential and secret. Can't leak grand jury information, even members of the grand jury or that, right? That is a charge. So it is normally secret. So sometimes the grand jury will meet, and the grand jury will issue what is called a sealed indictment. Sealed indictment. The indictment is there, but it is not sealed. It is sealed. Nobody knows. But in this case, it is not sealed because it is there. The indictment is circulated, all the counts and all of that. So the next stage is for them to get Azuddin Mohammed to the United States through a process that they call extradition, right? So I would expect the U.S. authorities will make the formal request for Azuddin Mohammed and his father to be extradited to the U.S. to face these criminal allegations, right? Now, government can't extradite you. The government of Guyana can't extradite them. It has to go through a legal process. You would have heard, or you might have noted in recent times, the Attorney General and them were making lots of statements about agreement with the United States to make the extradition process easier. Remember, because they had issues in the past with extradition. I remember a case, what the man named? The same man, CC help me out here, man. What the other, huh?
Dataram.
When Dataram was arrested and to be extradited, they had a big, long case in the courts, the magistrates court of Guyana. I remember who was a magistrate at the time. He's no longer a magistrate, a senior counsel now. Long. And then the court ruled that something in the law of Guyana did not allow for this extradition. Amendment was made. An amendment again. So I believe that whatever lacuna they might have been would have been resolved. So the process now to extradite should be easier. I don't know if anyone was extradited because the couple of cases we had case with some man, what they wanted for some motor manslaughter and something. Remember, he been at Rising Sun and the only there, and the police said that the government said the man volunteered to go back to the States. On 2 occasions in the past year or so, people were arrested who was wanted, people who were wanted in the States, and we were told that they agreed to go back. Right? So they didn't go through the legal process. Now, we can very well expect that once the process to extradite Azuddin Mohammed and his father has been initiated, one can, if it has not been initiated yet, right? We can expect a robust challenge in the courts of Guyana. Let me repeat that. This is a crystal ball. My crystal ball is telling me that once a request is made by the U.S. for Azuddin Mohammed and his father, Nazar Shel Mohammed, to be extradited to the U.S. to face all of these criminal allegations, court can get involved. You can expect a robust defense. I don't know if our laws in Guyana relating to extradition are similar to the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, because Austin Jack Warner, a former minister in the Trinidad and Tobago government and a former FIFA man, was indicted similarly in the US, and a request was made for him to be extradited to face the charge. And Jack Warner fight them tooth and nail. And after many, many years, it was recently reported in the Trinidad media that Jack Warner won. Right? Jack Warner won. In other words, he ain't going nowhere. Again, I preface that by saying I don't know if our laws are similar. I don't know, right? But Jack Warner fought his extradition successfully. He fought and he won. I can expect that Azuddin Mohammed and his father can fight the extradition as well. So that is the extradition process. Now, there is another process that you have to be aware of. Come on, students, you're doing well by sharing, but you could share some more. We just passed 2,100 or something on the live. I think you can share. We can pass 2003, perhaps go up to 2005. Share, man, share. Now, there's another process apart from the extradition. There's another process. Do you know what that is? Do you know what that is? I got into my teaching mode. Titillate the thinking. Do you know what that, Sean? Let me hear you. What is it? No, not plea. Nothing to do with plea. Nothing to do with plea. Let me hear you all. What is the next process? If we decide we're not going to go the route of extradition, what can be the next? No, man, sanctions are already there. Sanctions are already there. What is the next process? I'm waiting on y'all, man. I'm waiting on the student. I'm waiting on the student to tell me what can be the next process. Come on. I'm counting to 5. Annette is a bright girl. The next process is rendition. No, Shana, Caesar basket. We are getting them say rendition. You know what is rendition? Rendition is a thing where the US could come. You know, let me come to be conchimating. If you're there in the morning, they got something that they call they got some board, right? Cricketer arc that are sit on those electric wires over the trench, right? And from time a snail, what we call cricketer, move, they'll swoop down, pick you up, and they're gone. It's a meal. So a rendition is that where they can come. And for the time, if you travel, if you make mistake and travel, they come, they pick you up, you're gone. Roger Khan ran from Guyana to Suriname, where he was found with illegal stuff in Suriname. And then an arrangement was made for Roger Khan to be sent back to Guyana from Suriname. Understand the geography. Guyana borders Suriname. Just cross the Continent River, you're into Suriname. But Roger Khan was sent back to Guyana from Suriname via Trinidad and Tobago. So he was flown from Suriname to Trinidad to come to Guyana. And when he touched down in Trinidad, The feds were there to render him, to pick him up and to take him back, to take him to US. Rendition. So rendition is um, another process that can be used. Don't ask me about the legality, and I mean I'm no liar, but all I know, they got a process named rendition where you can be picked up and taken. The US can do that. They have done it. They did it to Roger Khan. The feds come, pick you up, and they carry you to face your charge or charges. So you have that too, right? So when you talk about assets and all them things, there's later down in the stage, you got to be convicted and all them type of thing. If you're convicted for money laundering, then they can talk about asset forfeiture and all this type of thing. But let me say this before I bring it back, CC, other thing there. Given this, it was rumored leading up to the elections in September. Somebody even say that sanctions were imminent. Government ministers and officials, sanctions were imminent. Then it was rumored that, hey, the men got so close to the election, perhaps the US one do that, something like that, because they can believe that they're interfering with the outcome. But now that the elections are over, let's sit and let's watch. People are asking things, speculating on social media. Who are the people? Let me understand. Que sera, whatever will be. Whoever gets sanctioned. Let me understand it clearly. Because a lot of names are being bandied about. Who's up on the list? And this is not a list like Gabby list. Gabby sang a song in Barbados. Gabby's a Bajan calypso. He said the list. All who named up on the list, right? That is the list of the people who got the AIDS. That was back in the day. This is the list. This is the list. This is the list of the fellas that got the AIDS. This is not the list. That's not what we talk about. It's another list. Another list. At some stage, the list is going to be known. It is going to be known. All those who are questioned, because I saw it was last week, they say a certain man, a certain cross, a certain traitor, people who some will claim to be a traitor, it is alleged that he was detained or arrested, whatever it is, in the States for a long period of time and questioned extensively. A lot of them questioned extensively. A lot of them questioned extensively. So people, they're wrong the place. First of all, they're not travel, because I have noted that running up to the elections there, July, maybe June, July, August, all them type everything. Them man, used to travel steady, will get property in the States and they get family in the States. Them not travel. And the few who have ventured to travel to the US were pulled in and questioned extensively, so much so, Mayor one man said, you not go back. You not go back to the States. Every time it passed you there. They might question me in detail, ask me about this body, ask me about that body. Right? So let us see what is going to happen, what is coming down the pipeline. But as I've said, we are in uncharted waters, because here you have a case where the presumptive leader of the opposition, presumptive meaning he didn't get the work yet, but the feeling is, given how the thing is structured, he is going to get the work. So he's presumptive leader of the opposition. Sanction, now he is indicted in the United States of America. He indicted. So are we going to elect someone who is indicted? Or maybe the people get inside information. So even before the election process, maybe we're going to pick you up, or maybe we're going to initiate extradition proceedings. We are in some interesting times. We are in some interesting times, right? So let me bring in Mr. Conway, and then I got more to talk about on this thing. Yeah, CC?
Yeah, Paul. The grand jury indictment. I don't know what really is in it, but somebody sent me something. I think the 21 pages indictment, and I recall the Attorney General on a couple of occasions had discussion with the people from the Department of Justice, and he did say that they were making it easy for persons to be um, for persons to be taken to the United States of America to answer charges. They were making it very easy. Apart from rendition, we know about Roger Khan, we know about others. But I don't know if this is the beginning of things to come. If it's the beginning of things to come, maybe they didn't want to before election. We behave before election to mention names or mention indictment because people might feel that they were interfering with the election process. They were meddling in the affairs of the election. But the election has come and gone. Nobody, we don't have any parliamentarian yet. And the thing is that, maybe a lot of people, we hearing a lot of people might be indicted, might be indicted. So let's wait and see the beginning of things to come.
Yeah, well, let me go on and tell you all something more with the grand jury. It says here, but first of all, let me understand, as I say, it's not a trial. Unlike a trial, a grand jury does not decide guilt or innocence, but acts as a gatekeeper or a shield and sword to protect citizens from unwarranted prosecution while allowing the government to pursue just ones. Grand jury proceedings are secret, and typically only the prosecutor and government witnesses are present. So you have this grand jury, so don't run away, Mr. Mohammed. And the Mohammeds have not been tried. There's no trial. It's just the government prosecutor went to this grand jury and present, look, this is the evidence we have against these people. So no, the person against whom the allegation is made, in this case, the Mohammeds, they ain't got no chance to defend yourself because this is not no trial. It's whatever the government said, that is what they will go by. And that is why they will tell you that almost in every case, it is very rare for the grand jury not to return an indictment. Let me repeat that. It is very rare for a grand jury not to return an indictment because no prosecutor will go before the grand jury without prima facie evidence. And once you get there with prima facie evidence, then they will issue the indictment. They will issue, as I've said, sometimes they issue what we call a sealed indictment. But in this case, it is not sealed. Let me say, they talk about probable cause. In Ghana, we talk about reasonable cause. In the US, they call it probable cause. The primary function of the grand jury is to assess the evidence presented by the prosecutor to establish probable cause, to believe a crime was committed. That's all the grand jury does. The prosecutor presents the evidence to establish probable cause and to believe that a crime was being committed. Once they have that, then the indictment. If probable cause is found, if the grand jury found probable cause, as they did in this case, the grand jury issues a formal document called an indictment, which authorizes the prosecutor to proceed with a trial. So you get a grand jury meet, prosecutor present the evidence, the grand jury examines the evidence that is presented, and then they say, yeah, they issue the indictment. And the indictment now allows for the prosecutors to proceed with a trial. Right? Stay with me and continue to share. They say a grand jury does not render a verdict of guilty or innocence. Grand jury don't determine whether you're guilty or not. That is the job of a trial jury. So understand the big distinction between a grand jury and a trial jury. In Guyana, we know about a trial jury. In the States, it's 12, right? 12, they say, of your peers who will listen to the evidence, listen to the cross-examination, listen to the prosecution, listen to the defense, and all them, well, they don't necessarily listen to all the submissions because many times submissions are going to be made in the absence of the jury, right? And then they will vote to determine whether you're guilty or not. That is a trial jury, not so a grand jury. A grand jury and sitting down to do all. They just hear the thing present. So they ain't going to determine whether this person guilty or whether this person innocent. All they got to determine, well, based on the evidence that you presented, yeah, we believe you should issue an indictment because this person may have committed the crime, and then the indictment is issued. Then we talk about confidentiality. The proceedings are private, which is essential for protecting the rights of the accused and encouraging the presentation of sensitive information. So it's private, so you can present information there without fear that it's going to be leaked out and all this everything. So they would have been able to present whatever they have to present, right, to the grand jury. Now, a prosecutor presents evidence and call witnesses to testify. That's how it works. The prosecutor presents evidence and calls witnesses to testify, right? Limited participation. Only the prosecutor and witnesses are generally in the room. The defense or a judge is not. Understand again, very important distinctions to be made. Only the prosecutor and the grand jury is in the room or are in the room. They're not going to judge. They're not going to defense lawyer. Nothing like that, right? They don't have any that. Well, not only preservation, Dennis, but presentation too, because if it had been open, perhaps they don't want to present certain sensitive information. But I say, apart from the preservation, is also the presentation of sensitive information. Then they say the grand jury decides whether the evidence warrants a formal charge. So in this case, the grand jury, having listened to the evidence, have decided that it warrants a formal charge. And then they say they got something here they call no bill, right? If there's insufficient evidence, the grand jury can vote to no bill, NO-BILL, meaning no indictment is issued. But we can pass that because an indictment is issued. So they feel that there's enough evidence, right? The grand jury acts, they're talking about the role of the system. The grand jury acts as a shield for the public against overzealous prosecution or charges that are frivolous or lack merit. So that's what the grand jury does. They act as a shield. So if some overzealous prosecutor run there with us, I would love to see that working in Guyana, because a lot of people being charged in Guyana, we don't have a grand jury system. The DPP determines, and they go there, and it's not until trial how many years down the road, then there's no evidence. But they're saying that this grand jury arrangement, it acts as a shield to prevent overzealous prosecution or charges that are frivolous and lack merit. So basically what they're saying, that once it gone through the grand jury system and you're indicted, is that the grand jury is of the view that it is not frivolous. There's enough evidence to charge, to indict, and for it to go to trial, right? Then it's the sword. That was a shield, now the sword. It also serves as a sword of the government by allowing the prosecution to move forward with cases where there is sufficient evidence of a serious crime. I think we explained that. Once the prosecution say it's sufficient evidence of a serious crime, they're going to move forward. Some people will argue that it's unfair because it's only the prosecution presenting the case. They make up what the government make up. The men say make up. I mean that in a kind of a derogatory way. They make up the case. They present it there. There's no opportunity to challenge or to rebut anything that is presented, and it's based on that the grand jury issues the indictment, right? They say in some states, grand juries also have the power to investigate and report on local government operations, ensuring public funds are spent efficiently and services are provided legally and effectively. That's what I said. Let me read about, because I would love to see that operating again. They say government watchdog. In some jurisdictions, I'm talking about in the US, in some states, grand juries also have the power to investigate and report on local government operations, ensuring public funds are spent efficiently and services are provided legally and effectively. That is what they say, right? Now, yeah, Daniel said the right thing. That is what the US people always tell you, that even sandwich can be indicted. Because once you air a matter going before the grand jury, as I've said before, most times it is very rare to air to the grand jury has not returned an indictment. Very rare, because I'm saying the thing is in favor of the prosecution. They go and they tell the grand jury what they have to tell the grand jury. They present witnesses and evidence, and it's based on that the grand jury will determine. So you tell me you're going to get a prosecutor going before the grand jury and I get a prima facie case to present. There are rare cases where the grand jury will refuse to issue an indictment. We know that, very rare cases. But most of the cases, once they go before the grand jury, is indictment. Is indictment. But I'm saying this too, because somebody made a comment. Extradition. Because he's indicted. In other words, he got charged in the US. Right? So a request is likely to be made for the Mohammeds to be extradited to the United States of America in the Southern District of Florida to face the criminal allegations against them. Right? Remember, in this OFAC sanction, they talk about customs officials who aided this process, government officials who aided this process. May Thomas aided this process. Let's sit back and watch to see what will happen to all of those. Let me tell you this. I believe that when OFAC issued that sanction last year, and they talk about government officials, while they named May Thomas, I believe that they have the names of the other officials who are involved in this alleged scheme. And if they're going to indict the Mohammeds, I believe at some stage, you're going to hear more about it. But I am saying this to remind us that once the formal extradition proceeding starts, one can expect the Mohammeds are going to challenge it all the way to the apex court. They're going to challenge. Even if they don't challenge, let's assume, for argument's sake, we're teaching. Y'all continue to share the line. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that when they get to the court say, well, no, they're not going to issue the extradition order. That is going to be challenged, without a doubt. That has been a challenge. Conversely, let's assume that they say extradite. That too is going to be challenged one way or the other. We're in for a nice legal battle over the extradition of the Mohammeds, if ever that request is made. We are in for a nice battle. And let me say this, as soon as I can't get knock out the studio, not if you get blackout. And let me say this, right? Let me say this. Now, when we get to, we have to look to see how this now is going to affect the political landscape in Guyana, especially the opposition. Are they going to now continue, whenever Parliament is convened, to vote for Azzuddin Mohammed as the leader of the opposition? If he is not voted as the leader of the opposition, who else will that person come from the inexperienced Win party? Or are they going to reach across? Well, it's not reach across. Well, reach aside. Across suggests you're going over to the government side. But are they going to now look for somebody, some consensus person in the opposition to make them the leader of the opposition? Folks, we are in for some nice time. We are in for some, sit back, whether you're a political analyst, whether you're a political scientist, we're all citizens and we should pay an interest into what is happening here, right? We should think that we understand it clearly. And you know, some people say, when you look at it, some people say, the power of the lobby. I don't know what I mean by that. I don't know what they mean by that, but some people I see on social media talking about the power of the lobby. Right? We are in for some serious times. in the political landscape. And I can anticipate, because as we are now, this country, Ghana, is not a real country, you know. I learned many, many years ago in my studies, right, that you get a government. A government, unlike, despite what you believe, a government is not the PVP alone and the president with cabinet and ministers. They said there are three branches of government, three branches. You have the cabinet, which is comprised of the president and his advisors. You have the judicial branch, which is the courts and so on. And you have the legislative branch, which is parliament. For now, we have two branches. We have the cabinet, called their name and their functioning. You have the judicial branch, the court, they too are functioning. But there is no third branch of government. We don't have a legislative branch. And we have not had one since the parliament was dissolved. I think it was sometime in July. We have not had one since then. So how can this country be said to be functioning as a democracy at this time? How can it be said? I don't believe you can make an argument that the democracy is functioning. 2/3 of the government is functioning, the 1/3 is not functioning. So we have got to look at this thing very, very carefully. Very, very carefully. Right? Folks, well, I see like CC get knocked out. So I have a bat alone. I suspect he get blacked out. Now we gotta come back, because I suspect we gotta get some other developments in this matter. Because this matter, I think, only broke this morning or overnight about this indictment, this grand jury indictment of the Mohammeds. So you could imagine the liars and everybody running and running and running. Everybody running around. Everybody running around. As I said, my apologies for not dealing with the traffic issue. And I'm sure that you would recognize that it was important that we deal with this indictment against the Mohammeds now. But I saw a letter this morning in the Kaichur News, which I thought I'll read to you, you know. I thought I'll read it to you, because I have been pointing out what the Police Corporate Communication Unit has been doing, all the mistakes, all the nonsense that they're putting out there and all of that. I've been pointing it out. Some people might feel that I was harsh on them and so on, but no, I am talking about standards. These are the people who write to tell you that some decomposed body was taken to be pronounced dead, and all sorts of crap that is right. And I have said that the reason for them doing so, because you have people there who lack policing experience. You have people there who apparently are not vetted properly. So they write all sorts of things and they put it out into the public domain. Should not be. Should not be. When you write the corporate communication right, they are representing what the force feels. And therefore, you have to make sure that you're very careful. This thing got to be vetted properly. I pointed out only recently, it was, I liked it on social media, even a form from the police. I don't know if the corporate communication had anything to do with that, but a form dealing with passport application. They wanted to ask a person for their descent, D-E-S-C-E-N-T. They asked them for their descent, D-E-C-E-N-T. Mistakes like that ought not to be made. I don't care what you say. We all make mistakes. But if you have a system of proper checks and so on, these things have to be identified. You have to make sure that these things are identified, because you might spend hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars go there. And sometimes to correct one simple mistake like that will cost you another couple $1 million. Might be abandon the old farm. Should not be made. And all I was asking them for is to make sure that you have a system which allows for proper checks. A release has to go out. Back in the day, we had some super competent public relations officer, Assistant Commissioner Ivla Whitaker, right? The same John Sayers that CC mentioned. David Ramnarine. I remember those people as public relations officer. And them shit then going out there. Them nonsense then going out into the media. The thing was liberated to some extent because back in the day, it was very restricted as to who could have issued releases. Very, very restricted. And I sat in a forum with some men from the UK, and we redesigned the whole thing, allowing commanders and all of some senior people to be able to interact with the media. But you have a unit now. This unit came into being sometime around 2020, right? They're bringing a guy named Mark Ramatari, things to be chronicle and so on. He believes he still let chronicle. He don't understand what police releases are. So they write a whole set of unnecessary and nonsense they write there. So this morning, and I'm inviting you to go and read it. Someone wrote in the Kaicho News, somebody by the name of SDT Fordyce. That is the name that is there, right? They say, and the caption is, National Shame, Guyana Police Communications Unit mired in blunders, right? The corporate, and I'm reading it, dear editor, the Corporate Communications Unit, CCU of the Guyana Police Force, continues to fail this nation. What should be a modern professional arm of the force has instead become a source of embarrassment, frustration, and public distrust. Time and again, the CCU issues statements that are incomplete, inaccurate, or poorly structured, eroding confidence in the very institution it is meant to represent. Take, for instance, the Adriana Young matter. The CCU mishandled this release so badly that instead of offering clarity and reassurance, it created confusion and outrage. There was no sense of accuracy, compassion, or timeliness, only rushed, careless approach that showed total disregard for the public's need to be properly informed. This was not an isolated case. Several recent releases have misinformed the nation. One, Chedidagan International Airport bribery scandal, September 2025. This, excuse me. The CCU release withheld critical details about officers demanding money from a passenger. Only after independent media exposed the full story did the nation understand the seriousness of the corruption at CJIA. Two, South Ravel murder report, September the 27th, 2025. The official statement contradicted investigative findings. It misrepresented the suspect's relationship, confused the sequence of events, and left the public unsure about what truly happened in Mararura village. Three, fatal accidents released July-September 2025. Several accident updates in Region 3 and Region 4 carried glaring errors of victims' name, incorrect dates, and even wrong location. Families of victims were left frustrated, traumatized, and credibility of the force was openly questioned. 4. Community outreach reports, ongoing 2025. Weekly reports continue to be generic, quote, copy and paste, unquote. Templates with no context, no outcome, and no relevance to the public. They read like filler rather than real communication. What makes the decline worse is that the CCU is not understaffed. The head of the unit is assisted by a senior police superintendent, yet the quality of work continues to drop. This shows the problem is leadership, not resources. Even more embarrassing is that Radio Ivleri, a separate entity with fewer resources, consistently produces clearer, more professional, and more engaging content. How can the official communication arm of the force, with more people and direct authority, be outperformed by a radio station operating on lists? The Ghana Police Force cannot claim to be modern and transparent while tolerating a communications department so outdated, careless and counterproductive. Unless the current leadership of the CCU is held accountable, the cycle of misinformation, mismanagement, and national embarrassment will continue. The Guyana Police Force deserves better. The people of Guyana deserve better. As I said, this letter is signed by a SDT Fordyce. I don't know who that person is, but I'm saying that is exactly what I've been saying all along. This organization or this department is supposed to project the force, project the right image of the force, not by telling lies, but when you come to releases, succinct releases. They used to tell you the name and the rank of the post who make the arrest, and that's not the irrelevant thing. Putting people's lives at danger. I'm under a drug raid, some officer lead a drug raid. But even now that they're taking out the name, but they put in rank. A raid led by an assistant superintendent. A drug raid. What is the importance of putting the name or the rank of the person who carry out the raid? Because, for example, if there's one deputy superintendent in the area, you ain't going to tell the person name. You put a deputy superintendent, people know who the person is. But they put a lot of irrelevant thing into the releases. They believe they're writing some Z-rated movie. And I will continue to call them out. And you know, I remember when I jumped, they like jump on Slow. Oh, Slow has to lead defense in sexual assault case. And that's what they're on there for, propaganda. Propaganda. But I am saying, I hope that the new minister will take note of these things because they do nothing to promote the force. Let me say this. Many times the police force, the ranks of the force, they do good work. I saw a video yesterday where some man, it looked like Avenue Republic, I'm not sure, but somebody robbed somebody and jumped overboard. The police, they say that the inspector went after him. Those things should be highlighted and promoted. That man should be rewarded. Went after him and got him out. But no, they don't deal with that. There are things that you need to promote when you're promoting the police force. They're writing us out of stupidness every day. They get inspection, they get this, they get this. They feel the need to promote and big up the kid when he talk a lot of stupidness. Right? When he talk a lot of nonsense, as he did with the opening of the bridge yesterday, I will deal with that another time. I will deal with that sometime. Come right, look, let me understand this. Right? Let me understand this. This story that this man wrote is accurate. I don't know who the person is, right? I don't know if it's a correct name, but when I read it this morning, I said kudos to this writer. And more people should write. More people should come and call them out. And you're calling them out with the hope, with the expectation that they will correct their ways and do better. With the expectation that the people who are in charge, like the extended squatter, and now the new minister and the crime chief, come the issue release on crime chief should be able to vet what is going out there. Crime chief should be able to vet. Look, they got this issue of the man the murder accused, who escaped from the Friendship Magistrate Court. They haven't told us up to now what are the details. But I saw in some other section of the social media, the man, I'm going to address it further. A murder accused, they said, put into some cell by a sergeant. And then the sergeant went to do something else. And then when the sergeant went back for the man gone. And somebody telling them they saw the man running up the road. How a murder accused going to cell? Why am to the lock? The gate, the cell ain't get locked? Why isn't he handcuffed? Why is he shackled? Yeah, police arrest Takuma Gunse for inciting racial hostility or some stupidness like that, right? Over some statement he made at a meeting in Buxton. He was shackled. He was handcuffed. Inciting racial hostility, that's what they claim. What is what they do? Weaponization of the police force. Weaponization of the police force. Same as Azudin Mohammed went to court. Voluntarily, he was summoned, he went to court. He pleaded not guilty to a charge. The magistrate placed him on bail. They then handcuffed him for carry them safe to him to get bail. What is the purpose of that? What is the purpose? I went to court to answer someone back in 2021. They arrested me for the same charge I went to court for. They want to carry me, for handcuff me, to shackle me, for carry me to court. That is what they're doing. We're not making these things up. That is what they're doing. And that is why people cannot have confidence in the force. And again, I say it is sad because there are many hardworking, dedicated policemen and women. I know many, many hardworking, but people paint everybody the broad with brush. Oh, the police force. They don't say an individual in the force corrupt, except when it's it can take 8.5, they single out it can for 8.5. But generally, when they speak, a corrupt police force, an unprofessional police force. That is what pains me, because I know it's not everybody corrupt, not everybody incompetent. I know that. And I would not be like the proverbial ostrich and bury my head in the sand and left my backside exposed. Well, all they do, yes, all they want to embarrass people. And time and cases when they can handcuff and shackle people, that should be murder. For murder, that should be a SOP. It can like to have SOP. How murder accused are treated. When I was at operations, in the day when Feynman and them, the rampaging around the place, I prepared an order, what we call high-profile prisoners, how they should be dealt with. It's still there. It is still there, high-profile prisoners. I'm sorry, Mr. Conway has been struck out of the broadcast, so he can't comment on that. But we're going to come back to it. We are going to come back to it. As I said this morning, folks, in the last part there, CC got knocked out, so I got left from your own. I got to compliment you again for your attendance this morning. You had great attendance today. Let me wind up by saying, again, I thank all those who have been making contributions to the upkeep of this program. It takes a little bit of money for run, Some of you got to pay platform fee. As a matter of fact, let me tell you all this. The last program was Friday. And when I got to set up the program, I got a notice from the people that the storage was almost full. You know what I had to do? I had to delete some of the older broadcasts in order to get storage so that we can continue to broadcast. Yes, it takes a few change, all the printing, and takes some money. This morning, I went to print, and the thing telling me ink done. So at some stage, I got to buy ink. So I appreciate your efforts to assist, and those who have been assisting, and I've said those who are in a position to assist, your assistance will be much appreciated. Much, much, much appreciated. The Zelle number there, the Cash App number, and the MMG number is there as well. Folks, we had a long morning. I say, we don't get no therapy today. The only therapy you're going to get is that the bridge is named after Vice President Jagdeo. That is the new bridge that they opened. But let me say this. My training, I am trained in observation. When we were in training school back in 1974, you had to do that. They would put you in a room to sit for like 4 or 5 minutes. And then when you came out, you had to write what you saw in the room. Observation. They trained you observation. I remember as a young constable, a man, I was mentor, Patrick Dehane, mentor friend, Malik, right? Malik used to Papa harass me and Albert, 2 constables or drill instructors, right? Courtney Lane. One day, he said, he don't like to hear the doctor, sir. Whatever we see, we just run and hide. So he caught us one day, and he said, go, run to the gate and come back. He's a talk funny. Run to the gate and come back. So me and Albert we double to the gate, we come back. Report to him on the TSC veranda. Say, how many palm trees you pass? How many palm trees? We didn't know how many palm trees. Guard duty, extra duty. So we come to palm trees, 43 palm trees. Next time you can come double, and you catch you. How many windows up on the southern side of the building? Extra guard again. So me and Albert decide we go to count everything. All the palm tree, all the window, everything we can count. Everything we counting and we observation. So yesterday, I looked at a certain part, especially the walking part of this bridge, and I noted with interest that the person in whose honor the bridge has been named wasn't there. The person, I said, that is strange. You know me, observation, that is strange. This bridge is named after Bar Jagdeo, and Bar Jagdeo is not there leading the walk across his bridge, right? Now, guys, these are there. Now, given, I understand there was a lot of confusion this morning for people coming from the West Bank to get access to the bridge. A lot of confusion. Well, let me say this to be fair to the system and so on. A new thing, so perhaps it's not unusual. It can work itself out. I hope that it will work itself out in the days and so on. And they might aid the process by having simulations and so on. I did see simulation to show people how to use the new bridge and so on. So we had that, and big opening, bridge name after a living person. Somebody said, well, normally, you know, these bridges in the States, you hear about memorial bridges in the States. When a person has passed, in honor of that person, the name bridge. But guy in a different, guy is a different place. Guy is a different place. Guy is not a real place. So you can get all of them type of thing, right? So folks, I'm going to talk about that because let me leave with a caution to Deputy Commissioner Watts. Yeah, he was there, but I think they say walk. They say I was looking to him walking in front because I remember back in 2000 and what year? No, 19. Sometime when I've been born, it's 2001. It'd be when they had that story at Albion there, right? He came when they had the riot at Albion, and one of the rioters was shot and killed. He came there a day, and he had to stop and walk. And we were there walking with him. I was the commander, and the man tell you, fling your foot, man, fling your foot, sir. He wasn't flinging his foot there. I didn't see him flinging his foot yesterday. So if he was there, I did not see him leading the thing, flinging the foot. I looked for that. I did not see him there, right? So if he was there, and if he flung his foot, my apologies. But I did not see him, right? I saw Deputy Commissioner Watts running along. Deputy Commissioner Watts running. Errol Watts. They get something that's called heart attack and so on. If you have fit, you know me, brother. You get a big stomach there. The minister decide, and the minister looks very trim and fit. So it looked like the minister decided to run the last part, and Watts decided to keep pace with the minister. And I can see the man's eyes bulging. Errol Watts, be careful. Don't try to impress, and then the next thing you know, you fall along in some corner there, and you fold up properly and the corner in your mouth. Know your level of fitness. I like Paul Slow can go and run there because I know Paul Slow is a geriatric. Paul Slow tries to keep himself fit. A little jogging here, a little jogging there will not cause me to lose my breath. But watch it. Folks, we had a long morning. Apologies for CC not being here at the end. And there are issues you would have recognized that we did not go into today because of this pressing issue of the grand jury indictment. I'm sure we will all agree that we could not have left that for some other time, right? We had to talk about it today. And I suspect it's going to be dominating the headlines for the next couple of days and so on. Because we are looking now to see what is the next step in the process. We're looking to see, is it going to be extradition? Is it going to be rendition? Stay tuned. Who are the other persons? Is it that now that the elections are over, gloves are off, and all those people against whom allegations were made about aiding the Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro in gold smuggling? Is it now that the elections are over, all of those things now are going to be dealt with? Let's sit back and watch. Get your popcorn, stack up your popcorn, let's sit back and watch. And while we are stacking up our popcorn, I'm sure many of them are stocking up on their toilet paper. Shittings are going to take place. Bowels are going to become loose. flatus, fart. Hey, I got to sit back and I got to enjoy the ride. What's the ride? What's the ride? Folks, what's the ride? Ballad, come down from the hill. Be at ringside. What's the ride? Old people say moon a run till they catch them. Moon a run till they catch them. And let me see what we call collateral damage. The fact that the Mohammeds were so close to the current cabal, members of the current cabal, are they likely to be implicated as well? Are we going to have the canary sing like the canary? Sing, Dalfa, sing to, you know the song? Big Belly Bajan Man, Sparrow sing the song. Are we going to have that? Are we going to have singing? Or are we going to have loud slinging and slow marching? You know, that's the other extreme. Singing, different types, songs of joy, songs of praise. And then you get songs, where they say loud singing, and slow marching. Mouth open, story jump out. Let me hear, man. Let me hear. I sitting back. I'm monitoring. Folks, again, yes, there's always an option. Always the option. Some people just can't take the rackings, and then they're going to go and drink that famous milk stout. You know, there's a famous milk stout, or some of them who are licensed firearm holder might do the wrong thing with the firearm. There's one of the issues we got to talk about going forward. Here the Vice President made a statement last week told us about guns. We're going to talk about it. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Yes, Jillian. And those who, those only part to say, the thing said, there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And those who do not have teeth, their gums will feel the heat. Folks, I enjoyed this morning. I hope you also enjoyed and you were educated, you were informed. So what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you the next program is scheduled for Wednesday, the midweeks program. And until then, I invite you to, again, remember, a lot of things happening. Car wheel come laugh and kill people. Man killing his stepson over a bicycle chain that slipped. Man up on the circuit, man dead. It's all sort of thing happening in this place, man. All sort of thing. The cross, government, they said, perhaps you need a day of prayers, a national day of prayers, right? Where all the various religions will pray. It look like only divine intervention can save me. It looked like only divine intervention can stop the thief in and save you. Folks, we have had a long morning, and then God spare life. We're going to be again here on Wednesday at 11 o'clock. Until then, be well, stay well. Bye.